The living room, once alive with family laughter, is eerily silent. The faint tick of an antique clock fills the space. Margaret Sullivan, 67, clutches a framed wedding photo of her and Robert. Across from her, Victoria and Kevin stand like judges delivering a verdict. Victoria, Mom, you can't stay here anymore. This house isn't yours now. Margaret lowers the frame slowly, her hands trembling. The words slice through her grief like glass. She sees not her daughter, but a stranger, one who has already erased her place in this home. Margaret, 3 days ago, I buried my husband. 3 days. And today, my daughter buries me, alive. Victoria gestures toward the 2 suitcases by the door. Kevin picks one up without a word, his expression unreadable. Margaret doesn't move, her eyes fixed on the family portraits lining the wall. Robert's smile stares back at her, steady and eternal. Kevin, it's better this way, Margaret. You'll adjust. Margaret's breath catches. Better this way. Adjust. Words meant for furniture being rearranged, not a life being dismantled. Margaret, I devoted myself to this house, to this family. 43 years of loyalty, and in return, I'm disposable. Victoria crosses her arms, impatience creeping into her voice. Victoria, there's a senior complex on Maple Street. You'll be comfortable there. Comfortable. Margaret hears the word for what it is, banishment. Her jaw tightens as she gathers the last box of photographs, hugging them like armor. Margaret, she inherited $25 million and still she treats me like a burden. But she doesn't see it yet. I may be leaving, but I am not finished. Kevin carries the suitcases to the car. Margaret follows, every step heavy with betrayal, yet sharpened by resolve. She places the photo box gently in the back seat. The car door closes with a dull finality. As the car pulls away, Margaret's gaze lingers on the house she built, now stolen. Tears blur her vision, but through them, a spark of steel emerges in her eyes. Margaret, they think they've won, but even pawns can become queens. And Victoria is about to face the game she started. The neon sign outside flickers, bleeding red light through the thin curtains. Inside, Margaret sits on the edge of a lumpy bed, her suitcase still unopened beside her. The wallpaper is peeling, the carpet stained, and the air smells faintly of mildew. She holds a cup of watery coffee from the vending machine, untouched in her hands. Margaret, from a home filled with memories to a room that smells of strangers. 3 days. That's all it took for my world to collapse. She places the coffee on the bedside table, her gaze falling on the Bible left in the drawer. She doesn't open it, only rests her hand on its cover, searching for steadiness. Her phone buzzes. A message from Victoria. Hope you've settled. Maple Street has openings. Margaret exhales sharply, her hand trembling as she deletes the text without replying. Margaret, settled. That's what she calls this. I raised her, gave her everything I had, and now she thinks I'll vanish quietly. No, I won't vanish. She walks to the cracked mirror above the dresser, studying her reflection. The lines on her face look deeper tonight, carved by grief and betrayal. For a moment, she almost doesn't recognize herself. Margaret, I've spent my life being the caretaker, the quiet strength, but maybe it's time I become something else. Maybe it's time I fight. The landline phone on the nightstand rings suddenly, breaking the silence. Margaret startles before answering. Margaret, hello? Mrs. Sullivan? This is Harrison Fitzgerald's office. We received your message. The lawyer can meet you tomorrow at noon. Margaret steadies her voice, hiding the tremor of relief. Margaret, yes, thank you. I'll be there. She hangs up slowly, her eyes finding the suitcase again. With deliberate care, she unzips it, pulling out a small stack of photographs, her and Robert at the beach, Robert holding Victoria as a child. She spreads them across the bed, like evidence of a life that mattered. Her gaze hardens. She picks up a notepad from the motel drawer and begins writing a list. Lawyer, bank records, Robert's files, each word underlined, each stroke of the pen firm and decisive. Margaret, they may think I'm weak, but I have truth on my side, and truth is stronger than money. Margaret closes the notepad, slides it under her pillow, and lies back on the bed. The neon light flickers across her face, alternating between shadow and glow. She stares at the ceiling, wide awake, her resolve sharpening with every breath. Margaret. Tomorrow, the fight begins. Margaret steps into a sleek downtown office, clutching her worn leather purse. The space smells faintly of leather and paper, lined with shelves of heavy law books. Behind a polished oak desk sits Harrison Fitzgerald, late 50s, sharp suit, silver hair, eyes keen with curiosity. Harrison, Mrs. Sullivan, please have a seat. Margaret lowers herself into the chair across from him, hands folded tightly in her lap. Harrison slides a folder across the desk. Harrison, I've reviewed Robert's estate documents. Something doesn't quite add up. Margaret tilts her head, confusion clouding her grief. Margaret, add up? My husband was always meticulous. What do you mean? Harrison opens the folder, revealing 2 copies of a will. The first, dated 2 years ago, leaves the house and assets to Margaret. The second, dated 3 months ago, favors Victoria almost entirely. Harrison, this revision, it doesn't match Robert's handwriting. And the witnesses listed? They don't exist in our records. Margaret's breath hitches. She takes the papers in trembling hands, scanning the neat, cold letters that strip her of everything. Margaret Vio. So this is how she did it. With lies inked on stolen paper. Margaret, are you saying my daughter forged this? Harrison doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he studies her carefully, weighing his words. Harrison, I'm saying the document is highly suspicious. And if it's fraudulent, then the estate still belongs to you. Margaret's eyes widen. Hope and fury rise together like a tide. Margaret Vio. She thought I'd be too broken to notice. Too weak to fight. But she forgot, I loved Robert longer than she's been alive. I know his hand, his voice, his truth. She sets the will down with new steadiness. Margaret, what do we do next? Harrison leans forward, lowering his voice as though walls have ears. Harrison, first, we verify the signature. Then we follow the money. If Victoria altered this, she won't have stopped here. Margaret nods slowly, her grief sharpening into resolve. She picks up her notepad, already adding new items. Signature analysis, bank trail, witnesses. Margaret, the pieces are starting to show themselves. And if there's one thing Robert taught me, it's that the truth always leaves a trail. The office clock ticks steadily, each second a drumbeat of a new beginning. Margaret rises, shakes Harrison's hand, and walks toward the door with firmer steps than when she entered. Margaret. Victoria thinks she's already won, but she doesn't see the storm gathering at her back. The blinds are drawn tight, muting the daylight into thin stripes across Harrison's office. Margaret sits opposite him again, posture straighter this time, her notepad already open on her lap. Harrison sets a thicker file on the desk between them. His expression is more serious than before. Harrison, I had Robert's signature analyzed by 2 independent experts. Both confirmed it's a forgery. Margaret inhales sharply, clutching her pen tighter. A storm brews behind her eyes, anger and relief clashing. Margaret, I knew it. She dared to sign my husband's name as if he were a stranger to me. Harrison nods, sliding several sheets of paper toward her. Bank statements, contracts, copies of Robert's legitimate will, all neatly marked with tabs. Harrison, there's more. Robert updated his estate 6 months before his death. In that will, everything, house, accounts, shares, was left to you. Nothing to Victoria. Margaret lifts the document carefully, her throat tightening as she reads her late husband's unmistakable handwriting. Margaret, Robert never forgot me. Even at the end, he protected me. He knew her greed before I did. Her eyes flicker with both grief and vindication. She traces Robert's signature with her finger, as though touching a fragment of him still alive on the page. Margaret, she stole more than money. She tried to erase me. Harrison's voice lowers, measured but firm. Harrison, Victoria filed the forged version in probate court. It's fraud, Margaret. And fraud on this scale doesn't stay clean. We'll need to follow her transactions, her sudden wealth, any trail she left. Margaret flips open her notepad, scribbling furiously. Forensic accountant, bank trail, court filing. Her pen presses, so hard the letters carve into the paper. Margaret. She thought she was clever, that her lies would bury me. But now, every lie is a thread, and I will pull until the whole thing unravels. Harrison watches her, surprised by her steel. He leans back slightly, adjusting his glasses. Harrison, Mrs. Sullivan, I must say, you're remarkably composed for someone who's just uncovered a scheme like this. Margaret lifts her gaze, her voice steady. Margaret, because I've already buried the worst pain a woman can know. Losing Robert broke me. Victoria can't. She won't. For a moment, silence hangs between them, filled only by the distant hum of traffic outside. Then Harrison closes the file with a decisive thud. Harrison, then we move forward. I'll arrange the investigators. You, meanwhile, keep every message, every letter, anything from Victoria. They may be evidence. Margaret nods firmly, sliding Robert's trowel back into its protective sleeve. She rises, clutching it like a shield. Margaret, Victoria took my home, my dignity, and tried to steal my past. But she doesn't know the future. She's just awakened. Margaret steps toward the door, determination etched in every movement. The file rests heavy in her bag, but her heart feels lighter than it has since Robert's death. Margaret, the truth is mine now. And with it, I'll take back everything she tried to destroy. Stacks of papers, photocopied bank statements, and highlighted contracts cover the dining table. Margaret sits at the head like a general at war, her notepad filled with meticulous lists. Across from her, Harrison reviews documents while a new presence joins them. Carol Chun, early 40s, sharp, professional, FBI agent with a quiet intensity. Carol, Mrs. Sullivan, I've reviewed the documents your lawyer forwarded. You were right to be suspicious. The money Victoria accessed doesn't match the probate filings. Margaret leans forward, pen poised. Margaret, where did it go? Carol lays out a series of bank printouts. Accounts in Victoria's name, transfers to shell companies, international wires flagged for review. Carol, here. A series of transfers to offshore accounts, Cayman Islands, Luxembourg. Classic laundering patterns. And Kevin's signature appears on several authorizations. Margaret grips the edge of the table, fury igniting her resolve. Margaret, so it wasn't just betrayal. It was theft on a scale Robert would never have tolerated. And Kevin was her partner in crime. Harrison, they thought hiding it overseas would protect them. But every transfer leaves a trail. Margaret studies the documents, her voice calm but sharp. Margaret, then we follow the trail until it leads to the truth. Carol exchanges a quick glance with Harrison, impressed by Margaret's steel. She leans closer, lowering her voice. Carol, Mrs. Sullivan, we can pursue this as fraud and money laundering, but it will take time. We'll need cooperation from financial investigators. Are you ready for this? It won't be easy. Margaret straightens in her chair, her gaze unwavering. Margaret, my daughter already tried to destroy me. There's nothing left she can take that matters more than the truth. So yes, I'm ready. Carol nods, sliding an evidence folder toward her. Carol, then we begin here. Every call, every email, every unusual purchase she's made in the past 3 months. We want it all. Margaret opens her purse, pulling out a small stack of letters from Victoria. Short, cold notes. She lays them on the table as though delivering ammunition. Margaret, each word she wrote dripped with dismissal. She'll never imagine they'll become the very proof of her downfall. Harrison adds them to the pile, marking them with yellow tabs. Carol starts assembling a timeline on a large notepad, dates connecting with arrows. Margaret watches, determination sharpening. Margaret, she thought I'd fade away into some forgotten corner. Instead, I'll make sure her lies stand trial. The hum of a printer fills the room as copies spill into the tray. Margaret gathers them, stacking them neatly, her movements precise. Every page feels like a brick in the case she is building. Carol, we'll schedule a forensic audit. In the meantime, don't contact Victoria directly. Let her think she's still in control. Margaret's lips curve into the faintest smile, cold and resolute. Margaret, let her play her game. She doesn't realize she's already moved her king into check. The room is dimly lit, the glow of laptops and scattered desk lamps illuminating stacks of files and maps pinned to corkboards. Margaret sits at the head of the long table, flanked by Harrison and Carol. An air of intensity hums between them, papers rustling like whispered promises of justice. Harrison, We've connected 3 shell companies directly to Victoria and Kevin. Each one routed funds through false contracts. It's a classic front. He slides a chart toward Margaret. Red lines connect names, companies, and bank accounts across countries. Margaret studies it carefully, her pen scratching notes in the margin of her notepad. Margaret. She thinks she's clever. But every empire built on lies eventually collapses. Carol taps on her laptop, a map of transfers glowing on the screen. Bright its blink across the globe, connected by digital threads. Carol. We're ready to move, but the sting has to be precise. If we push too soon, they'll vanish the money. Too late, and they'll cover their tracks. Margaret leans forward, voice calm but commanding. Margaret. Then we give them confidence. Let them believe they've broken me. When they're careless, we strike. Harrison adjusts his glasses, eyeing her with quiet admiration. Harrison, you've got the instincts of someone who's been doing this for years. Margaret allows a faint smile, though her eyes stay fixed on the board. Margaret Vio. All my life I've been dismissed as a caretaker, a background presence. They never realized I was studying, learning how people hide, how they lie. Now it's my turn. Carol slides a manila folder across the table. Inside are surveillance photos of Kevin meeting with an unknown man at a cafe, a briefcase between them. Carol, we believe this contact is moving funds into crypto accounts. If we catch the exchange, it ties him directly to the laundering. Margaret traces the photo with her finger, her voice firm. Margaret. Then we catch him in the act. No escape routes, no excuses. The tension in the room thickens. Harrison marks dates on a calendar pinned to the wall. Transfers, meetings, wire deadlines. Margaret rises, studying it as though preparing for battle. Margaret. This isn't just about money. It's about Robert's legacy, about every sacrifice I made. She tried to erase me, but I'll write myself back into this story, with ink they can't wash away. Carol closes her laptop with a decisive snap. Carol, we'll coordinate with financial crimes. The moment they move the next transfer, we'll be ready. You'll need to be nearby, Mrs. Sullivan, but silent. Let them underestimate you until the very last second. Margaret straightens, her reflection caught in the window glass. She doesn't look frail or defeated anymore. She looks like a commander. Margaret. Then that's what I'll do. I'll play the widow, the forgotten mother. And when the time comes, I'll be the witness who ends them. The 3 of them exchange a silent nod of unity. Outside the window, the city lights flicker like signals, each one a reminder that truth is waiting to be uncovered. Margaret. Victoria believes she cast me aside. What she doesn't know is that she's handed me the weapon that will destroy her. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across polished tables. The quiet hum of conversation masks the tension thrumming beneath the surface. Victoria and Kevin sit at a secluded corner table, their posture casual, but their eyes alert. A slim briefcase rests against Kevin's chair. Victoria. This is the last transfer. Once it clears, we'll be untouchable. Kevin smirks, swirling his wine glass. Kevin. Let them whisper and doubt. By the time anyone notices, the money will be ash and smoke. Across the room, Carol sits at the bar dressed in plain clothes, her gaze hidden behind a raised martini glass. A tiny earpiece glints beneath her hair. Carol, target in position. Surveillance live. All units hold. Outside, 2 unmarked vehicles idle along the curb. Inside one, Harrison reviews a monitor showing live feeds from hidden cameras. Margaret sits beside him, hands folded in her lap. Though outwardly calm, her knuckles whiten against her dress. Margaret, so close. One wrong move, and they'll vanish again. But Robert, guide me now. Don't let her slip away. Back inside, Kevin checks his watch as a man in a gray suit approaches their table carrying a slim tablet. He sets it down, opening a screen filled with numbers and transfer codes. Gray suit man. This will finalize the crypto exchange. Once you sign, the funds move instantly. Victoria takes the tablet, scanning the screen with greedy eyes. She taps the pen against her lips, then presses it to the signature box. Kevin leans forward, ready to follow. Carol, stand by. Almost there. Do not move until my mark. Margaret leans closer to Harrison, whispering. Margaret. She's signing her own downfall. Harrison gives her a steady nod, keeping his voice low. Harrison, Patience. The moment has to be perfect. Victoria finishes signing, sliding the tablet back with a satisfied smile. Victoria, it's done. By tomorrow we're free. Carol lowers her glass, her voice sharp into the mic. Carol, now, move in. In an instant, plainclothes agents flood the restaurant, flashing badges. The gray suit man freezes, caught mid-step. Kevin lunges for the briefcase, but two agents pin him to the floor. Victoria rises in shock, her confidence shattering into panic. Agent, Victoria Sullivan? Kevin Grant? You're under arrest for fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. The restaurant patrons gasp, some reaching for their phones. Victoria's face twists with rage as she's handcuffed. She spots the surveillance van outside through the glass windows. Her eyes widen as she sees Margaret's silhouette inside, watching. Victoria, mother, this is your doing. Margaret meets her daughter's eyes through the glass. Calm, unwavering. For the first time, Victoria looks powerless. Margaret, you thought betrayal was strength, but strength is standing when the world tries to erase you. Tonight, I've reclaimed my place. Victoria thrashes as agents drag her toward the exit, Kevin shouting behind her. Margaret doesn't move, her expression steady, her heart pounding like a war drum. Margaret, you chose greed, Victoria. And in doing so, you lost everything worth keeping. The grand marble lobby bustles with reporters, their cameras flashing like lightning. Margaret stands to the side with Harrison and Carol, her posture steady despite the chaos. Victoria and Kevin are escorted through the corridor in handcuffs, faces pale and drawn. The noise of shouted questions and snapping shutters fills the air. Reporter, Mrs. Sullivan, how does it feel to see your daughter indicted? Margaret doesn't answer, her gaze fixed on Victoria. Their eyes meet for a fleeting moment. Victoria's expression is a mixture of rage, fear, and disbelief. Margaret holds her ground, unflinching. Margaret, for years, she thought I was weak. Today she knows the truth. Strength wears many faces, and mine is unbreakable. The agents lead Victoria away, her protest swallowed by the echo of footsteps and camera clicks. Margaret exhales slowly, a quiet release of years of grief and betrayal. The room is warm with the glow of the fireplace. Margaret sits in Robert's old armchair, a cup of tea in hand. Harrison stands nearby, gathering his briefcase, while Carol reviews a few final documents. Harrison, it's over, Margaret. The evidence is airtight. They won't escape this time. Carol, and you should know, you were instrumental. Without your courage, none of this would have come to light. Margaret gives them a soft smile, gratitude shining through her tired eyes. Margaret, thank you, both of you, for believing in me when even my own daughter didn't. Harrison clasps her shoulder with quiet respect. Carol closes the folder, nodding firmly before heading out. The door clicks shut, leaving Margaret alone with the crackle of the fire. Margaret, I lost Robert. I lost the daughter. I thought I knew. But I found something I never expected. My own voice, my own power. She rises slowly, walking toward the window. The night outside is peaceful, the stars scattered like promises. She places a hand on the glass, her reflection strong and calm. Margaret, perhaps she'll call one day, begging for forgiveness. Perhaps not. But I am no longer defined by her choices. I am more than the mother she betrayed. I am Margaret Sullivan. And I survived. The firelight frames her silhouette, no longer frail but radiant with resilience. Margaret closes her eyes, inhaling deeply, as if finally free. The autumn sun filters gently through the trees. Margaret walks slowly along the winding path, a small bouquet of lilies in her hand. She stops at Robert's grave, kneeling to place the flowers on the cool stone. Her movements are calm, steady, no longer burdened by the weight of fear or betrayal. Margaret, Robert, it's done. Justice has been served. She tried to erase me, but instead she erased herself. And through it all, I found strength I didn't know I carried. Margaret rests her hand on the gravestone, her eyes moist but not broken. For the first time, there is peace in her gaze. Children laugh as they chase each other near the fountain. Margaret sits on a nearby bench, watching with a soft smile. She carries a small notebook in her lap, filled with her own handwritten reflections. A passerby nods politely, recognizing her from the courthouse news, but offering respect rather than questions. Margaret, life doesn't give us the endings we dream of, but it gives us choices, whether to surrender or to rise. I chose to rise. She writes a final line in the notebook, closes it carefully, and tucks it into her bag. The sound of laughter fills the air, no longer distant but grounding. The once cluttered dining table is now neatly organized, transformed into a quiet writing space. Margaret lights a small lamp and sits at the desk. She opens a fresh journal, her hand steady as she writes the first page. Margaret. I am Margaret Sullivan, widow, mother, survivor. And from this day forward, I will never let anyone silence my voice again. The camera drifts slowly through the room, lingering on family photos. Robert smiling, a young Victoria beside her mother, then returns to Margaret, who writes with quiet determination. She looks older, yes, but also free. The sound of the pen scratching against paper fades into the background as the fire in the hearth glows warmly, illuminating her renewed strength. The autumn sun filters gently through the trees. Margaret walks slowly along the winding path, a small bouquet of lilies in her hand. She stops at Robert's grave, kneeling to place the flowers on the cool stone. Her movements are calm, steady, no longer burdened by the weight of fear or betrayal. Margaret, Robert, it's done. Justice has been served. She tried to erase me, but instead she erased herself. And through it all, I found strength I didn't know I carried. Margaret rests her hand on the gravestone, her eyes moist but not broken. For the first time, there is peace in her gaze. Children laugh as they chase each other near the fountain. Margaret sits on a nearby bench, watching with a soft smile. She carries a small notebook in her lap, filled with her own handwritten reflections. A passerby nods politely, recognizing her from the courthouse news, but offering respect rather than questions. Margaret, life doesn't give us the endings we dream of, but it gives us choices, whether to surrender or to rise. I chose to rise. She writes a final line in the notebook, closes it carefully, and tucks it into her bag. The sound of laughter fills the air, no longer distant but grounding. The once cluttered dining table is now neatly organized, transformed into a quiet writing space. Margaret lights a small lamp and sits at the desk. She opens a fresh journal, her hand steady as she writes the first page. Margaret. I am Margaret Sullivan, widow, mother, survivor. And from this day forward, I will never let anyone silence my voice again. The camera drifts slowly through the room, lingering on family photos. Robert smiling, a young Victoria beside her mother, then returns to Margaret, who writes with quiet determination. She looks older, yes, but also free. The sound of the pen scratching against paper fades into the background as the fire in the hearth glows warmly, illuminating her renewed strength.